My name's Eddie Bell. I'm a complete neophyte in OT turning. That means that I have permission to have dumb ideas and ask stupid questions. So keep that in mind as I give this presentation on three-mass finials. So for those of you who may not be familiar with it, as far as I know, the first of these were made by Gorst. That's a beautiful example of one of his pieces. This was fueled purely by curiosity about what the possibilities are, and no way is this intended to be any judgment about what's good or what's not. So go to the next slide here. What do I do? The arrow, oh, to the right, okay. So looking at some gear calculations caused me to start thinking about what the possibilities were for finial and changing the shape of the mask, cross-sectional shape of it. And if you kind of look at the engagement of the pinion to the gear there, you can see that if the pinion were narrower, well, it would have a different way of contacting. So that, of course, led to thinking about, well, what's the variations caused by the touch shape, and what's the influence of the amplitude, and it never ends. So variable one is the touch shape, and so I use three different touch shapes. One is sharp. It doesn't look very sharp there, but there is a line. And then this is just one I had. It's slightly convex. It's 300 thousandths wide. And then this one here, I just milled it off flat. And it's 390 thousandths because that's how wide the piece of plastic was before I started. This is going to heel toe as it goes over the rosette. And you can see that from the pieces here that there's very little influence on the shape or the size caused by the shape of the touch. Interestingly, though, this touch has a tendency to cause the cutter to stick, because when the cutter goes down into the groove, well, both sides of the cutter engage simultaneously, so there's a lot of friction. Whereas if you've got a little bit of width on here, it causes the first one side of the cutter to engage, then it moves over, and then the other side comes out engaged on the second side. So you can cut much smoother and at a reasonable feed rate using this. I didn't see any advantage to this, really. Okay. So, then the cutter shape. This is the traditional finial, and you can see that the 120 degree included angle on the insert cutter gives you a pie shape here. And what I was looking for when in my imagination was, actually I was thinking about making it round, but that didn't work out. So I had this cutter, and actually Gorst could have done this because this was his tool, and I'm using his machine, so he may not have wanted to. But anyway, you see it gives more of a pie shape, a teardrop shape. Although if you look carefully here, there's a little bit of a flat. And so you see this facet line right here. And so then I thought, well, wonder if there's some way to get that facet line to go away. Not that necessarily that makes it better, just wondering if I could. And so just in time, Chris Plouffe comes along, says, hey, I found somebody that has got a CNC carbide grinder, and is willing to make tools for us. And so I talked to Phil Poirier, and he drew up this cutter with the little convex sides on it, concave sides on it. And Chris had it made, and he speeded it out, got it out to me real quick, and I did this just a couple of days before I came in here. This tool is truncated. It came to me with a bullnose on it, and I ground it off for a different experiment that didn't work out. With this one you get a really true teardrop shape with no flat anywhere. All right, so one of the things that you see about the shape of the cutter is besides the profile, is the separation here is much greater than separation is over there. So there's a lot more light can go through there, and I think that to my eye is nice. And so then we can look at the amplitude. I don't know what happened to that slide, but anyway, that's supposed to say amplitude there. And we can see, as expected, so the amplitude here is 100, 80, 60, and 40. And as the amplitude goes down, well then the size of the mass is going to go down with it. That was not a surprise to anybody, I don't think. So I made up a sample with the teardrop shape and sample like that, and I showed them to my wife, and I said, which one do you like better? And of course she said, well, I like the profile of this one, but I like the separation of that one, wouldn't you know? Whatever her wish is, I went back, and so that you can see the parameters on the first two there are the same. But the difference is, to get more separation on this one, I just drove the cutter in farther. And I think that now this is all run from 100% amplitude here. Actually, the middle one was probably 105 or 110, kind of fudged over to the far side of the amplitude adjustment device. I have an Armbruster Mark II. But I think that if you started off with somewhere between 80 and 90% amplitude, well, you could get this pleasant size of the 80% amplitude diameter and still get the separation just by driving the cutter in farther. So I know I was allowed 20 slides, and I only have 9, so if anybody wants to buy 11, well, we're set here. I'd like to thank Brad Davis for inviting me to do this presentation. I'd like to thank all of the people that put on this amazing symposium. I'm really enjoying myself and meeting a lot of nice people. Thank you, Chris, for getting that tool out to me so fast, and thank you for your attention.